Okay, here it is, boys and girls, the video you have been waiting for. It's the traditional method of long division. But let's first begin with a review of forgiving method. If you recall from the forgiving method, I would be taking all of this, 624, and trying to figure out what I can multiply by 4 that'll get me close to that. The whole thing, the whole 624, using multiples of 10 or 100. I can put down 100, multiply that together by 4, get 400. That gets me as close as possible to 624 without going over. I subtract, leaving me with 224. And I do the process again. 4 times what number gets me close to 224 without going over? Well, I can look at these two numbers and I see 22, and I know that I can multiply 4 by 5 to get 20. So let's do 50. 4 times 50 is 200. That's as close as I can get without going over, leaving me with 24. And then it's a basic fact. 4 times 6 is 24. I subtract, I've got nothing left. All I need to do now is add up all of the pieces, and I get 156 as my answer. So using the forgiving method, I grouped them in numbers that are multiples of 10 or 100 until I get down to numbers that work well with the basic facts. Using the traditional method, I don't look at all of the 624 as a big number. Instead, I look at each of the digits in the places that they're in the dividend. So I'll start with a 6. I need to know what can I multiply by 4 to get me as close to the 6 as possible without going over. And I could say 4 goes into 6 how many times, or what's 6 divided by 4, but I'm not a big fan of division, and I've said many, many times in the classroom that I'd much rather multiply. I'm better at it. And so that's why I put the multiplication symbol there. So 4 times what number gets me close to 6? Well, that number is 1, and I place that number right above the 6. So now I multiply. 4 times 1 is 4. I subtract, leaving me with 2. Now the next step in the traditional method is to bring down the very next number in the dividend and place it right next to your last number. So we've got a 22. And now I do the same process again. 4 times what number gets me close to 22 without going over? Well, that number would be 5. 4 times 5 is 20. I subtract, leaving me with 2. And now I do the very same thing I did last time. I bring down the next number in the dividend and place it right next to the number that was left, leaving me with 24. And then I start the process again. 4 times what number gets me close to 24? Well, as we said earlier, that is a basic fact. 4 times 6 is 24. I write that, subtract, leaving me with nothing. So the answer is the same, 156. I just go about doing it differently. Instead of writing a string of multiples over here of 10 or 100, I'm able to do it within the problem right here, one digit at a time. And notice where I place the numbers, right above the numbers that I am trying to split up, or trying to figure out what I can multiply 4 by to get the answer. Let's take a look at this one. We have 578 divided by 6. So using the traditional method, I take a look at the first number. Now this one's a little different because 5 is less than the divisor, so I can't say what's 6 goes into 5 how many times, or 5 divided by 6. It doesn't make a lot of sense. What I can say is, what can I multiply 6 by that gets me close to 5 without going over? Well, that doesn't quite make much sense either, because the only answer that works there is a 0. And 6 times 0 is 0, so if I subtract that from the 5, I still get 5. And if I bring down the next number, 7, I end up with 57. Well, that's the number I started with. So there is a little trick to that. If you have a number, the first number, that's less than the divisor, instead of just looking at that first number, look at the first two numbers together, or the first two digits together, and then try it that way. So, 6 times what number gets me close to 57? That answer would be 9. And notice where I placed it. I placed it above the 7 because I'm using the 5 and the 7 together. Well, 9 times 6 is 54. That got me as close as I could without going over. 7 minus 4 is 3. And then I bring down the 8, giving me 38. And then I do the process again. 6 times what number gets me close to 38 without going over? And that would be 6. So 6 times 6 is 36. That got me really close, leaving me with 2. Now, since this number is less than the divisor, I can't split that up anymore. And there's no other number up here to bring down, so it looks like I am done. I just need to bring that 2 up here and put that as my remainder. So 578 divided by 6 is 96 remainder 2. If you're having a difficult time remembering the steps involved in long division in the traditional method, we use a gimmick to help us remember. And that gimmick is dad, mom, sister, brother. And those letters, the first letter of each of the words, stands for part of the steps, or part of the step that's involved in doing long division. So this is divide, multiply, subtract, and then bring down. So let's do the dad first. So 57 divided by 6 is 9. That's the division part. Now we multiply. 6 times 9 is 54. That's the multiplication part. The S stands for subtraction, so we subtract. 57 minus 54 is 3. And then the B in brother represents bring down. So I bring down the 8, and then I do the process all over again. 38 divided by 6 is 6. Now I multiply. 6 times 6 is 36. Then I subtract. 8 minus 6 is 2. And then I bring down if there was another number up next to the 8 right here. But there isn't. So in this case, I'm done. I bring the remainder up, and I get my answer of 96, remainder 2. Well, I certainly hope you're able to follow those directions. If there's anything that I can make clearer, please let me know, and I will do that for you. Good luck and do your best.